We're going to discuss two stories. One is the story The Vanishing Ball by Zhang Qijiang, and the other is the Lane 116 Liaoning Street by Zhang Dachun. But other than these two stories, we are going to use some quotations from My Bodies from Military Compound written by Zhu Tianxin. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, these are the three stories written by the three writers I mentioned. But actually, from the publication year or publication date, you can see that this kind of thing, the thing of a military compound in Taiwan is widely used in the earliest part of the 1990s. Okay, so I think this is quite important because after the martial law in Taiwan was lifted, more and more second generation mainland writers, they were able to write what they wanted to talk to the society and to the county government. Okay, so they no longer took for granted their relationship with the county party, because I think we know that their parents, their elders in the family, they took the relationship between themselves and the county for granted. They always support the county government. But for these three writers, they started to question some of the problems that the county government did not deal with very cleverly. Okay, so I think this is the political background for this kind of writing. Okay, so I think this passage from an essay written by Qi Wangyuan is quite informative, and this kind of interpretation is very intelligent, because I think according to Qi Wangyuan, she wrote this. Qi Wangyuan she's a retired professor of NTU, and she's a very famous scholar of the English translation of Taiwanese literature. And she wrote an introductory essay named Taiwan Literature, 1945 to 1999. And this essay is collected in Chinese literature in the second half of a modern century, co-edited by Qi Wangyuan and David Wei Wang. Okay, so in this essay, Qi Wangyuan argued that from this passage, we know that the modern literature that arose in the 1960s uprooted and replaced nostalgic anti-communist literature. However, no literary trend can be suddenly terminated. In the 1980s, a group of second-generation writers who had grown up in military dependence compounds began to write about their unique experiences and their critical views. Okay, so these so-called second-generation writers include Zhang Qijiang, Zhu Tianxin, Zhang Dachun, and Yuan Qiongqiong, and also Xiao Sa. These writers, they were the so-called second-generation mainland writers, and they were not born in mainland China. They were born in Taiwan. I think they were born in Taiwan in the 1950s or even the 1960s. Okay, so they were second-generation writers, and their attitude toward politics and their attitude toward the situation of the living situation of the mainlanders in Taiwan are quite different from their parents, that is, or their elders, that is the first-generation mainland writers in Taiwan. Okay, so I think in this passage, what Qi Wangyuan tried to argue is that they grew up in military dependence compounds, that is Juanchun. Okay, and with this kind of living environment, this kind of specific space, they have different attitudes other than their elders in the first generation. Okay, so this is quite important. They are related. These two types of writing the nostalgic anti-communist literature, and the second one is the military dependence compounds writing. They are related in some way because these second generation writers, they try to deal with the problems left behind by the first generation writers. Okay, so in this way, they can be seen as some kind of there's a relationship of some kind of a continuation between these two kind of different writings. Okay. Okay, so let's check some of the information, historical information of this kind of writing, and especially important is this kind of community in Taiwan. Okay, so the name of this specific type of community is 眷村 in Chinese, literally dependence village. Okay, so we can say that it's we can translate it into military dependence village or military dependence compound or military family compound. We have a list of different translations, but they all mean 眷村 in Chinese. Okay, so this 眷 means the dependence of the troops, especially the troops from mainland China. 村 means village. Okay, and during the 1949 Great Retreat of KMT government from mainland, more than these are some numbers that may be helpful in understanding this kind of community. More than 1 million people immigrated to Taiwan, and among these more than 1 million people, 600,000 people were military personnel and their families. Okay, so it was once estimated about 879 military family compounds have been built all over Taiwan, in all the cities in Taiwan, all the cities and township in Taiwan. And they took in more than 460,000 mainlanders with military backgrounds. Okay, so I think we can say that a majority part of this 600,000 military personnel and their family were taken in by this kind of a community. Okay. And this kind of specific type of writing has some very important issues that we have to understand before we get started. First of all, is this kind of community at certain point is a temporary residence, because we know that we keep talking about the slogan "fighting back to China" and saving all the people in mainland China, right? This is a slogan. This is a slogan made up by the KMT government. They try to boost the morale of the Taiwanese people and mainlanders in Taiwan that under the leadership of President Chiang Kai-shek, one day we have to fight back to mainland China. But it is until after maybe 20 years and 30 years that the mainlanders, and not only the mainlanders but also Taiwanese people, they started to think about this question, because it's very unlikely that they had a chance to fight back to mainland China, right? Because during the Korean War, the KMT government did have this kind of chance to fight back to mainland China, but the U.S. government did not allow the KMT government to do so. And also, maybe during the Vietnamese War period, the KMT government also had this kind of chance, but the U.S. government did not allow the chance to happen. Okay, so we know that this is after they started to feel that this is not only a temporary residence in Taiwan, they will remain in Taiwan forever. They will from generations to come, they will remain in Taiwan forever. So they started to thinking about this kind of residence. Their quality is not very good. Okay, so they started to think that maybe the KMT government did not take good care of the mainlanders in Taiwan. Okay, and this kind of community or this kind of residence for the mainlanders, it's isolated from Taiwan's society as a whole. And this kind of, I think there are four aspects of this kind of isolation. At least I can find this social, political, and spatial temporal isolation. Okay. These are four dimensions of this kind of isolation. The first one, I think the most important one, is the spatial temporal isolation. Because many of the people, if you have read this story, The Vanishing Ball, or the story written by Zhang Dazhun, Lane 116, Liaoning Street, if you have read these two stories, you know that these people, they were trapped in this kind of residence. If they stay in Taiwan society, if they chose to stay in Taiwan, they have to live in this kind of space. But after the urban renovation started, they found it's impossible to live in this kind of space anymore. Okay, and if they chose to leave Taiwan, of course they can get out of this village, and maybe they can go to the United States. Maybe they can go to other countries in the world to study and stay for good in the foreign countries, right? Okay, so I think if you are not able to leave this country, or if you are not able to leave Taiwan, you have to stay in this place. In this kind of residence, we know it as military family compound, right? Because many of the mainlanders, they have limited financial resources to buy a home for themselves, so they have to chose to live in this kind of village or this kind of military compound. So in a sense, they were trapped in this kind of space, and also they were trapped in the past. This is temporal isolation. I define this kind of isolation as a temporal isolation. For example, in Crystal Boys, we see Li Qing, the character Li Qing. His father is this kind of character. He was trapped in his past history, because we know that Li Qing's father used to be a brigade commander in mainland China. He's a very brave soldier, right? He's a very brave officer. But after 1949, he lost all of his soldiers in the army. He went to Taiwan by himself, and after he went to Taiwan, he found that he was discharged from the army, right? So he tried to seek his past glories, but in vain. Okay, so he was trapped in the past. And also we see in the story, The Vanishing Ball, we also see the character of the grandfather of the narrator. He's also trapped in the past, because before his death, he still thought that it's possible to fight back to mainland China. So that's the reason why he thought that it's very tragic that President Chiang Kai-shek died, because President Chiang Jr., that is the son of President Chiang Kai-shek, was not able to let the mainlanders to fight back to mainland China. Okay, so this kind of character, they were trapped in the past. They had a very glorious past in mainland China. They tried to seek this kind of glorious past, but in vain. Okay, so these are the so-called special temporal isolation. Okay, and also we see some kind of social political isolation from the Taiwanese society as a whole, because some of the mainlanders, I added 2 question marks after the third point, after the second point and the third point, because this is a debate, to an extent that this is debatable, because some of the people in Taiwan, they argue that the reason why the members of the military compound, they cannot make a proper living in Taiwan, is the reason for this is their lack of social competitiveness, because many of them, they went to the government after leaving the village, they have a job. They found jobs in the government, and maybe they found jobs in the army. But someday, when they were discharged from the government, or someday they were discharged from the they were discharged from the army, they were not able to make a proper living. So many of them have to choose to become cab drivers, taxi drivers, or they have to become criminals. Okay, so this is something very pathetic. But we also know that there were some of them became very successful. For example, there is some of the mainland businessmen in Taiwan. They became very successful. And we also see there are some mainland scholars from Taiwan that became very successful. So this is debatable. So one part of these members from the military compound, they have this kind of lack of social competitiveness. But also another part of these members, they are very successful in Taiwan. So we cannot say that they are in lack of social competitiveness. And we also see the pro-KMT attitude. Of course, take the first story, the Venetian Ball, as an example. We know that the father of the narrator and the grandfather of the narrator, they both took their relationship with KMT government for granted. They always supported the KMT government. But in the narrator, or maybe in the writer himself, or maybe in the writer Zhu Tianxin herself, we see some kind of a suspicious attitude toward KMT government, because they don't think that KMT government took good care of the mainlanders in Taiwan. Okay, so they started to reflect upon their relationship with the KMT government. Okay, so this is some change in the attitude toward the KMT government. Okay, so the following point is related to the third point. They started to reflect upon how KMT treated the mainlanders in Taiwan. Okay, and the last issue is in this kind of residence, this kind of community, we can find a specific culture or many specific culture from mainland China, because after they went from mainland China to Taiwan, of course, they took their family traditions to Taiwan. So, for example, in recent years, we found that there's a very famous and popular type of or unique culinary culture of we know as Juncun Cai, or the dishes of Juncun, or the dishes of the military compound. They combine all kinds of different dishes from the mainland provinces to become a new type of cuisine in Taiwan. Okay, so this is a specific culture in the military compound in Taiwan. Okay, so this is a passage from the story written by Zhu Tianxin. The title of the story is "In Remembrance of My Buddies from the Military Compound." In this story, Zhu Tianxin tried to use a female character to reflect upon her childhood and her growing up in Taiwan and in this kind of a military compound. And in this passage, we see she is the female protagonist of the story. She runs to the front gate of the compound. It is a sunny Saturday afternoon, and at the riverbank, 10 to 20 boys, ranging from first graders to those who have reached the conscription age, have converged like a flock of birds. Okay, here comes the important part. At the entrance of the compound, between two tall stone walls, nobody knows their exact function, hangs a red banner with the words "Number X, candidate XXX," has the full support of this compound. Okay, so this is a very famous political culture of Taiwan, because in the past, every 1 or 2 years, Taiwan has an election, and many of these candidates of election were supported by county government. So they were also supported by this kind of military compound. So you know that you don't have to, if the military compound had this kind of banner in their gate, you don't have to go into to elicit your votes, because they have already decided which candidates to support. You don't have to go into the military compound. Okay, so they have a very specific and very distinct political tendency. Okay. And we started to read this story, The Management Board by Zhang Qijiang. I think this is a very interesting story, because we know that baseball in Taiwan is quite Japanese, because we know that it is Japanese people brought baseball to Taiwan, not the U.S. The U.S. Army, because during the Japanese occupation period, we already have baseball teams in in many of the high schools in Taiwan, and maybe some of the colleges and the universities in Taiwan have this kind of baseball teams. Okay, so it's quite Japanese and quite Taiwanese, because we know that Japanese people started to play baseball in the second half of the 19th century. Okay, and so when after Taiwan was colonized by Japan, Taiwanese people started to play baseball in the first half of the 20th century. And after 1949, baseball culture became a very integral part of Taiwanese culture. But basically, it is many of the key players in Taiwan's baseball history, they were from Aboriginal families in Taiwan, or they were from Taiwanese family. They were not from mainlanders family. So there are very limited numbers of mainland baseball players in Taiwan. Okay, but in this story we see a group of boys from the military compound village. They founded a baseball team, and this baseball team lost all of the games after the establishment of the team, right? Okay, so this is something very interesting. If you are a mainlander in Taiwan, you chose to play baseball, you might be against the will of your parents. Okay, so we have to try to understand, try to explain why did this narrator, this protagonist of the story, and all his fellow baseball players chose to establish a baseball team in the first place. Okay, so the theme of this story is quite interesting, and I think this is also because Zhang Qijiang is one of the most important baseball writers in Taiwan, and he also writes stories about urban problems, and he also writes about the problems of the military compound. So he used this story to combine all his specialized things of writing. Okay, so this is a very interesting story. Okay, so Zhang Qijiang, he was born in 1961. So he's of course he's by definition he's a second generation mainland writers in Taiwan. And his father is a native of Anhui province, so of course from mainland China. And he's also a graduate of NTU. He graduated from Department of Business Administration, and he's a winner of many literary prizes. Okay, so we can get started with this story. Okay, Besides, we know that the story has a very specific special structure. That is, we know there is a military compound or a military family village or a military family compound, and there is a surrounding there's a surrounding environment of Taiwanese society. So we know the military family compound, then Fulian village in this story is surrounded by a very specific Taiwanese environment, and beside the military compound, there is a baseball field. That actually is a grass field. It's not an official baseball field. It's only a grass field, and many of the local boys use this grass field to play baseball. Okay, this is a very specific special structure. But another structure is also very important. That is the temporal structure of the story. So we know that the timeline in this story is very important. So we can say that many of the stories we read so far in this semester, they use this kind of past and present formula to form the structure of the story. So we know this story, the Venetian Ball, has a structure. It's a combination of the past and the present, right? Past it's in the 1970s. Actually, it's started from 1975, and the present is 1991. Okay, so it's quite clear, a very specific timeline of this story. Okay, so in the past we see a very important baseball game, because according to the agreement from both sides, one side is the Fulian village, the boys from the Fulian village, and the other side are the Taiwanese boys. If the team lost the game, they will lose the control over the grass field or over the baseball field, right? Okay, so that is a very important baseball game. And in the past, we know that the specific time is set in April 1975, because on that President Chiang Kai-shek died on Twin Sweeping Day in April 1975, and it is mentioned in the story. Okay, and we know that this is a very traumatic, something very traumatic and something very important for all of mainlanders in Taiwan, especially the first generation mainlanders. And in the story, we see the narrator has a grandfather and father, and also, so we can see not only two generations, but a three generation structure in the family. We can see different attitudes of these family members toward President Chiang Kai-shek's death. Of course, like the grandfather, he thought that it's all over because we were not able to fight back to mainland China, because Jiang Jr., that is President Jiang Jingguo, Jiang Jr. could not be counted on, and the dream of fighting back to the mainland vaporized, according to the grandfather, and the military family village would soon be ripped off. How could they afford to buy a home for themselves? So this is some kind of pessimistic attitude of the grandfather. But on the other hand, the father of the narrator had quite an optimistic prospect for their future, because the father thought that they can count on the President Jiang Jingguo or Jiang Jr., and the party will surely take care of us, because the father said that even if the military family village was ripped off, the party will arrange living spaces for them. In maybe the village will be rebuilt in two or 3 years. So he used this to console the grandfather, right? Okay. So we see that they have different attitudes, but he was wrong, because the the military village, the buildings were the buildings in the village were rebuilt 13 years later, and they were this is no longer a military family compound. It's buildings are used by Taiwanese people. Okay, and the father is both right and wrong, because he's wrong about the party, but he's right about President Jiang Jingguo, because President Jiang Jingguo surely can be counted on. He's a very able president, and he led Taiwan to economic prosperity. Okay, but the narrator, he had quite another attitude toward the death of the President Chiang Kai-shek, because he didn't think that it is a big deal, because my baseball game is more important. Okay, so this is we can see the three different attitudes toward the death of President Chiang Kai-shek. So from this we know that something had changed among the different generations of mainlanders in Taiwan. Okay, and another time structure, in the time structure we see another element that is from the past to present, because we see the things happen in the present, the things happen in office. Okay, so before the narrator's father died in 1986, the father was able to secure for the narrator a job in a semi-official trade company. Okay, so we know that he used his limited connections in the party and the government, and used this kind of a connection to secure this job. And this is the last thing that he thought he could do for his son, right? Okay, so after the father's death, President Jiang Jingguo also died the next year, or it's in 1987. Okay, and this is also in the past, but 4 years later, in 1991, we see the present of the story. Okay, so the narrator had been in the company for 4 years right now, and 3 months earlier, there's a character from a friend of the narrator. The narrator got to know that Chen Guoxiong had become an NTU graduate. But this is a great contrast with the narrator himself. We know that after growing up, the narrator became a failure to some extent, because we know that he failed to pass the college entrance examination, right? And so he was able to secure a job by his father in this trade company, but he did not seek promotion. He did not seek raise. He did not seek to make friends with his colleagues. He did not try to he did not try to find a girlfriend. He lived in a very pathetic life, right? Okay, and but we know that Chen Guoxiong, that is the Taiwanese kid, he became very successful, and not only did he graduated from NTU, but also he became the supervisor of the narrator, right? Okay, so we can see a great contrast between these two characters. Okay, and at the end of the story, we see the narrator chose to resign. I think this is quite important, because we know that after leaving the military family compound, the narrator had to worry about the money of the province of rent, and he had to worry about the coffee money, the cigarettes money for himself, right? So he had to worry about a lot of bread and butter issues in life, but he chose to resign at the end of the story. This is something quite contradictory to his present living situation. Okay, so we have tried to interpret this kind of decision in his life, a very important decision in his life. And in the story, we also see the values of the older generation. Of course, this is quite different from the younger generation mainlanders. Because the father, in the story, we see the father talk about the so-called 12 guidelines for youth, counter-attack and save Great China, and study hard and go to United States. They thought for the first generation mainlanders in Taiwan, they thought there are only two things which are very important for their sons and daughters. One thing is study hard, and the other is getting a job in the government. Okay, so they thought that these two things are the most important things to do. But that's obviously this is not the narrator thought. Okay. So the father told the narrator, baseball, my boy, is a game for rotten, uncivilized Taiwanese kids. Okay, so this is some prejudice of a mainlander against Taiwanese people. Why do you mess around with them? It only pays off if you can make the national team. Okay, so most of the members of the national team, national baseball team, are from Taiwanese family, not from mainlanders family. You were just a kid when you lost your mother. Last year your grandpa died. Someday I'll be gone too. And then what will you do? You better set your mind right now on studying hard so you can get some kind of government job. Then maybe someday President John will want to see you. Okay, so they thought that to be received by President John is very glorious. Okay. Okay, we can see the countries I just talked about. On the one side, there is the Chinese kids, the TKs, Taike of the West Bean gang. I think the West Bean should be the name of the junior high school they were in. Okay, I think. And the main character in this West Bean gang, Xisong Bang, is Chen Guoxiong. He graduated from NTU, and his father was the owner of the land 10 times bigger than the narrator's military family compound. And actually, the baseball field they were playing on is also owned by his father. Okay, he used to be nicknamed Shorty, but now have a head taller than the narrator. So this is a contrast in the physical features between these two main characters. One is the Chen Guoxiong, the other is the narrator. And he's now the section head of the development department in the semi-official trade firm. And he's not a committee member. He's considered to be unqualified for this reason. But in fact, he was quite competent. And he considered the narrator to be his friend. This is one side of the contract. And the other side, we can see the characters from Fulian New Village, Fulian Xinchun. Actually, the so-called Fulian means Fulian Hui. In English, National Women's League. This is an association used to establish and headed by Madame Chiang Kai-shek, Song Meiling. Okay, so we know that many of the military family compound were established and constructed by the by the funds offered by National Women's League. Okay, so this is the name of the military family compound, and the main character on this side is the narrator himself. He failed the entrance exam because we know that he played baseball all the time, so he failed the entrance exam, entrance examination, the college entrance examination, and he couldn't get a decent job, and he had to rent the place to live because the village had been demolished, of course. And he worked in the trade firm for 4 years. He's a guy who worked as little as possible. He lived like a slave and tried to forget about himself. And at the end of the story, he decided to resign. Okay, so we later on we will interpret the choice of resignation. And there are several other characters from the Fulian New Village. and they are the baseball teammates of the narrator. The destinies of these characters reflect both the specific culture and Taiwan's economic boom. For example, there is a character, Cannon. He went to a non-commissioned officer's military academy and later executed for deserting after stealing a gun. Because we know that at that time, if you steal a gun and you desert the army, you will be punished with capital punishment. And we also see Tiger. He's also a good friend of the narrator. He used to be in jail because we know that he's a criminal. And we also see Little Luo, Xiao Luo. He prospered in the real estate market. So I think not every members of this kind of military compound like social competitiveness, right? We see Little Luo prosper in this real estate market. And we also see Tony and the Stinky Asshole. This is quite interesting name. They were the women of Little Luo, and they started their business in stock market. Okay, so they are quite they were like Little Luo. They were quite successful. I said that we have to interpret the narrator's decision to quit the job because it's quite unreasonable to quit his job, especially when he was no longer living in the military family village, right? Because he had to pay for the rent. He had to pay for his coffee money, his cigarette money, right? So I think this is we need some kind of explanation for this choice. Okay. So in the process of the story, in the process of narrative of the story, the narrator gave his reasons for quitting. He gave us two reasons. The first one is that quitting the job is saying goodbye to the past. So I think quitting the job means something symbolic because he wants to say goodbye to the past. He wants to say goodbye to the history, not only the past, because the past means the personal experience in the past. But why he want to say goodbye to this something deeper in its meaning. That is the history of the I think this is the history of the mainlanders in Taiwan. From this passage, we can see this very clearly. In the resignation letter, he tried to submit. The narrator wrote, "The reason I choose to disappear, of course, disappear from the company. The reason I choose to disappear is that I'm confused. Why couldn't that game simply be a game? Why did that festival vanish?" So we see this from a symbolic level that the game has a symbolic meaning for this narrative. Maybe my answer lies in the fights we lost before ending up here in Taiwan in 1949, the Siping Street battle. This is a Siping, not the Siping Street battle, because Jie means street, right? So it's a Siping Street battle. Siping Street battle is a very important battle, took place in Manchuria not very long before 1949. At that battle, the KMT government lost several 100,000 people. And the incident of 500 martyrs in Taiwan 500万人. This is a very glorious story made up by the KMT government, because according to the explanation of the KMT government, there are 500 government officials and soldiers. They chose to commit suicide when the communist troops went into Taiwan city. Okay, so this is another very historical moment of the Great Retreat of 1949, and also the ordeal at Xubang battle. that is the very famous 徐蚌会战. Okay, so in all these famous battles, the KMT government, the KMT troops, they lost several 100,000 people. And these battles became very traumatic for the mainlanders in Taiwan because they lost their sons and fathers and wives and daughters and relatives and friends in these battles. And anyway, they came to Taiwan alive. They survived these battles, but they will remember those victims in these battles. Okay, but for the narrator, he tried to say goodbye to this kind of traumatic memories. Okay, so my life has been filled with cries of a long-lived President Jiang. But of course, President Jiang Kai-shek passed away more than 10 years ago. And I was brought up on the injunction: kill Zhu De and whip out Mao. 杀猪保毛. Zhu De is the general of the Communist Party, very famous general in Communist Party. And Mao, of course, means Mao Zedong. This is another slogan made up by KMT government. They try to use this to boost the morale of the Taiwanese people. And entirely unrelated to me and yet informing my childhood, this story is about Chinese killing Chinese. Okay, so although this is a part of Chinese history, but the second generation writers like Zhang Jijiang, they do not want to get involved in this kind of history anymore because this kind of history is in the past. This kind of historical events are in the past. They are only related to their fathers and their uncles. They don't think they are involved. They are involved in these kind of battles. Okay, and the other reason to explain, or the other way to explain the choice of resignation for a narrator is that according to the narrator, it didn't have to be in a government, or it didn't have to be a government job or a job in a semi-official trade firm, right? Because there's always an alternative way to make a living, a way to interpret it with Taiwanese. Because if you stay in the army, if you stay in the government, if you stay in the semi-official trade company, you will be together with the mainlanders for your whole life, right? If you choose to leave, that's the starting point of your integration with the Taiwanese people. Okay, so the narrator told Tiger that I told Tiger not to call others fools or bastards. If you have guts, follow the path of those tough guys from Windy Town. Windy Town is a Hsinchu city, right? It's a nickname of Hsinchu city. And Hsinchu city is a place where famous for its mainlanders. They committed a lot of crimes in the 90s. Okay. Take your chances as robbery, murder, eating bullets. If not, be man enough to drive a taxi or mix cement. Here, a cement mixer, Papa. Now that the 6-year National Development Plan and the Taipei Mass Rapid Transit project are underway, you wouldn't object to me taking a job that contributes to the country, would you? If worst comes to worst, I could be a street peddler on the street, playing hide and seek with the police. My Taiwanese is good enough to attract buyers, even if I stammer like a nugget. Get over childhood goodbye. Of course, this is also a way to say goodbye to the past, but in a way, it tells something more important than that, because we know that the narrator, he decided to integrate with the Taiwanese society, okay, and it can be done only after leaving the company. So he chose to resign from the job that his father secured for him. And we had to interpret another thing in this story, because at the end of the story, there's a fight between the the Taiwanese kids and the kids from the military compound, Fulian village, right? Okay, so after Chen Guoxiong hit the work, that is the shorty. Chen Guoxiong hit the work of Homer, the two teens started a fight. And the narrator chased Chen Guoxiong, tried to beat him up. And this following sentence said by Chen Guoxiong can be seen as reflecting the complex political situation of Taiwan in the early 90s, because we see an intensified ethnic relationship between mainlanders and Taiwanese people back then. Because Chen Guoxiong said that, get lost, you can't beat me on my family's land. So not only the land, the grass field is owned by Chen Guoxiong, but we can say that the whole land of Taiwan are owned by Taiwanese people. So in a sense, we see that many mainlanders felt that they was estranged, alienated by Taiwanese people, because they are not living on a land of their own. That is the mainland China. And Chen Guoxiong also said that mainlanders go home, all of you. So this is very mean to say to a mainlander, because for many of the Chinese people, they do not think they are in the same team with the mainlanders. Okay. So at that time, after President, because we know that President Chiang Kai-shek died in 1975, and later on in 1987, his son Jiang Jingguo also died, right? So after that, President Li Denghui took over. He's one of the first important Chinese political leaders in Taiwan. So at that time, many of the mainland political leaders, they felt threatened. Not only political leaders, but also the mainlanders. They thought that their position in Taiwan, their political position, their political power in Taiwan was threatened by Chinese people. So according to one of the minor characters in the story, the senior colleague of the narrator from Shandong province, the March power struggle, damn it was all planned. After Li Denghui, it would be Lin Yanggang, the second son of the Jiang family. The second son of the Jiang family is General Jiang Weiguo, okay, the younger brother of Jiang Jingguo, would never become the president of the Republic of Taiwan. And this is called localization. And localization is very important political policy at that time. Do you hear me, boy? Localization. It's all over, even if your name is Jiang. So this is the political situation in the earliest part of the 1990s. Because after Li Denghui took over, he started to further democratize Taiwan, and he started to take control from the mainlanders, take political control from the mainlanders. So when the Kennedy party had to decide which candidate they are going to support in the presidential election, Li Denghui got the upper hand. He won Jiang Weiguo. Okay, so we see that this is the political situation back then in the early 1990s. Okay, so this is the first story we read today. Okay, but I think maybe you did not read this story, but anyway, this is another very representative story in this genre, the genre we know as 眷村小说, or the novel of military family compound. Okay, so Alley 116 Liaoning Street, this is written by Zhang Dachun and it's published in 1991. Okay, and so I think if you had a chance to read this story, I'm pretty sure that you can see the great difference between the two stories. The first one is the Vanishing Ball, and the second one is this. Because in the Vanishing Ball, we see a very critical attitude of second generation mainland writer Zhang Tijiang against the KMT government, and also against the threatening from Chinese people. But in this story, we see Zhang Tachun trying to depict the past way of life and his past residence in a more nostalgic way. We only see something very romantic and something very interesting in this short story. Okay, we cannot see a lot of antagonism, element of antagonism and conflictions in this short story. Okay, so there are three main points I think which are very important in this story. First one is the residents of this military family compound had always wanted to move into a more spacious apartment, but when they did, they became quite nostalgic, because we know that, like I said, the residence is meant to be built as a temporary residence, so it's not very comfortable. It's not very comfortable, very modernized to live in. But anyway, after they move to another place to live, they start to memorize their past way of life and their past residence. Okay, and the military family compound was demolished and the people relocated. This is a part of Taipei's process of commercialization, because we know that Liaoningjie is actually located in the eastern district of Taipei. So right now it's a very busy and really commercialized part of Taipei. So you cannot see a lot of traces of the traditional elements of Taipei in this part of world. And we see different types of residents in this military family compound. The differences between the army and the air force family. So not only there are differences between mainlanders and Taiwanese people, there's also differences among different type of mainlanders. For example, we can divide them into people from different provinces, and we can also divide them between people working in the government and the people who didn't have a work in the government. And we can divide them into the family background with different military troops. For example, in this we can see the differences between military family of the army and the military families of the air force. Okay, so this is three things three very interesting things about this story. Okay, so if you have a chance to go there, you can see that there's a lot of change. But anyway, it's a Liaoning Street. It's a real street in Taipei, and it's a real location in Taipei. We have 116 Liaoning Street here. Okay, so it's not very far from. It's a location between Jianguo North Road and Fuxing North Road, and not very far from Nanking, the third section of Nanking East Road. Okay, so in the first part, in the beginning of the story, we see there's two villages. There are two military compounds. One is Guangfu East District, and the other is New Fuhua District. And the Guangfu East District is Air Force dependence housing, and New Fuhua District is a Defense Department housing. And these two places are divided. These two places were divided by LE 116 Liaoning Street. Okay, so these two residences existed from 1951 to 1970. Okay, so after 19 years of existence, the new Fuhua district was demolished and the residents moved to Tibet Street, Tibet Road, Xizanglu, in the west district of Taipei, and it's 12 miles away from the original place in Wanhua. So this place became a land of broken tile and older dishes. Okay, but the Guangfu East district remained there. From these two passages in the earliest part of this story, we see Zhang Dacheng tried to use this story to tell us that there's a specific lifestyle in this kind of residence. Okay, it came as quite a relief for Air Force dependents when the residents of a new Fuhua district moved. Now they could see Nanking East Road, which had previously been blocked by 4 rows of Japanese-style houses. They no longer had to worry about all the noise, the mahjong games, the arguing, the cursing, and the playing which went on day and night, making it difficult for their children to study for the school entrance exams. Okay, so Zhang Dacheng, he's a boy from the army family, and he tried to depict the boys and the girls from the Air Force family as they are more industrious in studying their homework, and these kids from the army family, they prefer playing, not prefer studying hard. Okay. And the next passage is what they call Old New Fuhua district did not refer to the new Fuhua district, which had been constructed in 1961. By the time the sign was put up, they had already said goodbye to their old military dependence quarter. So what Zhang Dacheng tried to say in this passage is that after the relocation of the residents in the new Fuhua district, the new Fuhua district disappeared forever, because although the people might be the same, but the residence is no longer here. Okay, so what disappears is not only the houses in this new Fuhua district, but also the passive way of life. Okay. Okay, so several years later, we can see that this new Fuhua district became a flat land, and the Guangfu East district, it was also demolished, and the residents dispersed to Yonghe, Banqiao, and Boston. So from this, we can say that the Air Force kids, the Air Force family, the kids from the Air Force family, they study hard, and they try to study in abroad, and later on they relocated to United States. Okay. So in this very short story, we see the commercialization of Taipei. So Zhang Dacheng said that at the time we were all angry about one thing. On one part of all new Fuhua district, China Airlines, the company of China Airlines is not very far away from the military family compound. China Airlines had built a large office building, and the value of the property had soared. The empty lots were so expensive, nobody could afford them. In the rubble, our common army childhood was buried. This was unbearable because we never imagined that our little kingdom sat on the most expensive piece of land in Taipei. So, in terms of we can read this story from the perspective of urban fiction. It's pretty much like the works written by Huang Fan. Zhang Dacheng used this story to present the transformation of Taipei City, okay, especially in the 70s and the 80s. Okay, and in this short story, or in this, we can say that this is at the same time an essay, and maybe it can be seen as a short story. Okay, so in this short story, we can see the influence of American culture on these kids from the military family compound. most of the army kids my age agreed that our desire to move to the spacious new apartments was influenced by American movies of the 1960s. We didn't have a TV because for Zhang Dachun, this TV sets and the refrigerators and even other things, more expensive things, are owned by the Air Force families, not owned by the Army families. Okay, we didn't have a TV, but through a crack in the bamboo fence, I could hear the Air Force kids talk about the characters in I Love Lucy, who live in apartment buildings. When the brick wall replaced the bamboo fence, we Army kids spent a lot of time in the ice cream and the fruit shop at the mouth of the alley, watching Simon Templar, the Saint, coming in and out of a high-rise apartment. So this is the reason why they want to move to apartment buildings. But what is ironic is in this story is that after they move, they relocate to the apartment buildings because the new residence, the new Fuhua district located on Tibet Road is a 4-story apartment building. After they moved to this new place, they started to find a way to memorize their place, their living space in the past. Okay, so we can see this is what's written in Zhang Dachun's story, Lane 116, Liaoning Street. Okay. Okay. So this is what we read. The 2 stories we read today.